What if the 45th and 47th President of the United States were to become the 48th? Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, you probably heard that in the last couple of days, the President Trump, that is, has been floating some suggestions that people would like it if he were to serve another term, and he refuses to categorically rule that out. The Wall Street Journal had a rather detailed article about it today, Steve, and as we record this, in which Akil Reed Amar, who's a constitutional scholar pretty far to the left, I've read several of his books and had a brief email correspondence with him a couple of years ago, but he even said it is theoretically possible for Trump to serve a third term as president, even though it's constitutionally forbidden for him to be elected to a third term. Steve, I'm more interested not so much in speculation about whether it can happen or not, but do you think it is wise for the president to talk about this, or do you think, what's the strategy? Like, what could he possibly be thinking other than he's not thinking?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, and this is where, as much as I appreciate what Trump is doing, he gets a little frustrating sometimes. We elected him to clean up government. Lord knows it needs cleaning up, especially after these last 4 years. And we talked about Bill talked about that quite a bit in my segment this week. We elected him to restore our prestige on the international stage, and I think he's doing a good job of that in a very short amount of time. Appreciate that effort. We elected him to do something about the high cost of living, and I'm afraid, as much as I understand the need for tariffs on countries like China, that he's going a little overboard, and his own White House guy, his own budget guy, says his tariffs are going to raise $600 billion in revenue every year for the next 10 years. That's money out of consumers' pockets, and it hits the poorest and the middle class the hardest. So I'm wondering if he's not going a little bit overboard on the tariffs. This is not what we elected him to do. And the same thing with this talk about a third term. You know, George Washington could have been president for life. He could have been king if he'd have asked for it. And not only did he say no to that, he said no to a third term. And Washington was very careful in almost everything he did as president, because he was the first. He was setting the example. He was setting the precedents that others would look back at and say, this was the first and greatest president. We're going to do what this guy did. And it took until FDR before anyone even dreamed of running for a third term. And FDR was not in good health at the time. He had no business running for a third term, much less breaking that precedent so wisely set by Washington. And so when Trump talks about this stuff, I know he's a New York developer. He's got a big ego and a big mouth to go with it, and that's one of the things I like about him, except when it leads to distraction. Now, maybe there's a purpose to the distraction. Maybe he's trying to take eyes away from the Signal Gate BS from last week, which was no big deal. In fact, it's such insider baseball, I don't think it's going to capture the public imagination at all. SNL tried a sketch on it last Saturday, and whatever. So maybe that's what he's doing here. He's, throwing out some stray voltage to distract from stuff he wants distracted from. But there's got to be a better way to do it. There's got to be a better topic to use, because this talk about a third term isn't just unconstitutional, thanks to the 22nd Amendment. It's just not, it doesn't sit well, I don't think, with the American people, who I think respect the two-term limit, not just as a matter of the Constitution, but as a matter of principle.
And FDR elected to 4 terms and died in office during the 4th term. And Harry Truman was convinced that the Republicans were pushing an amendment to the Constitution to limit it to 2 terms just because of their hatred of FDR. And a strong argument could be made for that. Bill, it's interesting the way Trump gives life to and sustains these kinds of thoughts. I mean, for all I know, it may have been initiated by a question from a reporter, and then he just he likes to muse about things out loud and get people thinking about it. But Bill, I guess one of the things that concerns me is, even if we love every single thing that President Trump does during his entire next, this full term of office. What concerns me, Bill, is no coattails. Like, where's the next generation of men of action, who could become president and consistently and rapidly take action on conservative priorities the way he has done that? It's almost a sad commentary on the state of the Republican Party that people would be fostering this idea of, hey, maybe we can get Trump for another term. Am I reading too much into this, or do you think he is intentionally trying to goad the media and just give people something to talk about?
Well, let me kind of answer that question backwards. I've never seen a stronger Republican bench than we have right now. All of the paladins that he put in place for his second administration are young, dynamic people. Pete Hegseth is a young guy. Marco Rubio's a young guy. Pam Bondi. These are Kash Patel. These are young people. We've got. We talked on our backstage show that Ron DeSantis didn't perform particularly well on the national stage, but I mean, we've got lots and lots of really talented people on the bench. So I don't think this reflects badly on the bench. It's one of two things, and I think Steve pretty much covered most of what I could imagine I could say. So we know that Trump 47 is enormously more disciplined message-wise than Trump 45. Enormously more disciplined. That doesn't mean that things can't leak out occasionally, and this may be just a Trumpism. There's a puckish quality about the guy where he just likes pulling people's chains just to pull their chains, just to see it. Now, I didn't think in the days after the election, but prior to the inauguration, I thought that this annexation of Greenland, this retaking of the Panama Canal, and Canada, the 51st state, that this was badly advised. But I realized after the fact that what he was really looking for in Greenland was more access to military installations and perhaps mineral development, that he was basically laying the groundwork. So that gives me the second option. Either it's just plain, unforced error, or he's laying the groundwork for something else that he wants. One way that he could be elected for a third term would be to repeal the amendment that limits the president to 2 terms. This might be a sense of him trying to get onto we're winning so much. We're going to was it 22nd Amendment?
Yeah.
22nd, yeah.
We're doing so much winning, folks, that we're going to have to repeal the 22nd Amendment so that we can win some more. But look, I don't think Donald Trump is serious about a third term. I don't think Donald Trump wants a third term. I think Donald Trump wanted revenge, and I think he wanted not just personal revenge. I think he realized the country was in really bad shape. He seems to have an enormous amount of confidence in J.D. Vance. Vance has shown nothing but loyalty to Donald Trump so far, and I don't see any sign of any of that changing among any of his cabinet. So I don't know. It may just be a cosmic ray. I know it's going to give the left more tyranny ammunition, but maybe that's the strategy too, Scott. Maybe the strategy is to simply burn them out. Is to just simply burn them out so that they've got nothing left. Yeah, this is actually starting to make more sense for me. The only way that the Democrats can recover as a party is for them to get over their Trump obsession. And if Donald Trump keeps making statements like this continually puts them into the small wedge on the 80-20 issues. They must oppose Donald Trump at every outcome, no matter what he says. Even if 80% of the American people agree with it, the Democrats have to oppose him. This may be just him adding fuel to the fire, just saying, just in case you get any ideas about getting sensible about things. I plan on running for a third term, and I plan on constituting a new presidential uniform, which consists of a sable coat, with a giant with a giant T across the back. And a crown, and then the progressives again will take him literally instead of figuratively, and that's the best I can come up with on short notice.
That's pretty good.
And I think what's interesting about this is that people are alarmed about it. Like, you're not the reaction to Trump saying you might go for a third term isn't, oh yeah, well, go ahead and try, you loser. I mean, after people have seen the disaster that you've wrought in your 47th administration, in the 47th presidency, there's no chance. Like, this should elicit laughter from the left, but it doesn't. Because they're actually thinking, not only could this guy get in position to do that, but people would like it. And it scares them. So there were a couple of scenarios that were floated in the story, just for those of you who are interested in the inside baseball. One is that Trump would run the next time as a vice presidential candidate, say with J.D. Vance at the top of the ticket, and then Vance would resign. And therefore not violating the 22nd Amendment, which says no person can be elected twice to the office of the presidency, or having served for a portion of a term, like Gerald Ford did, you can't be elected more than once again. So, that would be one scenario. Akil Reed Amar, the constitutional scholar, lefty, said, honestly, he could be appointed as Secretary of State and be third in line for the presidency, and then the president and the vice president could resign. Or you could have, as you guys mentioned, you could have a constitutional amendment that would overturn the previous constitutional amendment. Interesting about all of those scenarios, it would require just an unbelievable level of self-sacrifice and loyalty on the part of other people. Like, two of those scenarios call for somebody who managed to get elected president of the United States to step aside in order to let Donald Trump be president. And then the other one assumed that there would be enough people in Congress and in around the country that those people would say, yes, we want this, we want to amend the Constitution. It's been very, very difficult to amend the Constitution. So all of these scenarios tremendously difficult. I personally am a little concerned that I'm always concerned when people attach themselves to individual humans and not to general principles or movements. But, I think Bill's right. I think there is a strong bench coming up, and I don't think we're stuck. Although we'll never see another Donald Trump, it's not that we'll never see another strong conservative. However, I do have one, I think, legitimate concern, and this goes broader than just this topic. The challenges that Trump is raising to constitutional questions that then spur lawsuits by people who want to prove that what Trump is doing is unconstitutional could have the unintended effect of getting the Supreme Court to rule on a number of issues about which they have thus far been silent. And in other words, delegate the authority of making law, so to speak, to the court rather than reposing it where it ought to be with the legislature and the executive. And it makes me a little nervous when we're seeing more and more cases going on the docket having to do with executive authority and the constitutionality of various things that the president wants to do, just because I don't want 5 people in black robes to be deciding what the Constitution means at every turn. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.